researched them and never been to it. And so she had them do some research, and this is a student, and I love this picture because of what came after this. She went to a place in Mexico that she really wanted to visit, and they used Google Street View to do it. We didn't have expeditions because we applied and Google said no. But she was using Google Street View and Cardboard Viewer, and she went to a particular place in Mexico, and I wish I captured what she did on video, and I almost wanted her to redo it so we could fake it, but then I said that's not authentic. But she was like, oh my God, I always wanted to go to this place and my mom wouldn't take me. And that was a pretty amazing experience too. I mean, you get chills just thinking about it. But what they did is, I think we ended up with maybe 8 cardboard viewers in this class from 15 students, which worked out fine, aside from we really learned that BYOD is completely ineffective because not all of their devices worked with Google Cardboard. Some of them had iPhone 3s. There we go. A few of them had flip phones. A few of them had iPhone 5s and 6s, but they had the 8 gig models, so their memory was, well, 8 or 16, so their memory on their phone would not allow the Street View app to even work. So we encountered a lot of issues like that. And what's funny is, right after this meeting, I went to a meeting with my superintendent, and I'm pushing for us to, as we're working on evaluating our system, eventually going to a one-to-one, which we're getting there. Her response was, well, Ranfranz, kids have their own devices and we need to let them use it. I said, I have no problem with that, but we have to also support the kids that do not have them. And oh, by the way, I just did BYOD in an 8th grade classroom, and here's what happened. And that changed the conversation entirely. So it helps to be on the ground in these classrooms for sure. But this one was really interesting because the activity after this, and I did not put the picture of it on here, and I'm annoyed by that. I posted it to Instagram when it happened. The activity after this, the kids had to research the part of the country they were visiting, and they had to create something based on it. And so I happened to look around the room and saw on a couple of phones there was Minecraft. And I said, you know, you can create the thing you need to create in your phone using Minecraft. And the kids went, what? And the teacher said, oh yeah, you can do that. It's your choice, whatever you want to do. And she emailed me a really nice letter like a week later and said, thank you so much for coming to my class and opening this world up. Here's what my student created in Minecraft. And it was the most amazing arena built, and it was a specific part of Spain that he visited that I think I've ever seen. So if I find it, I'll reshare it because it's pretty amazing. And it was great for her to have that experience. So I'll talk a little bit about our next steps, and then of course we'll have questions and answers, and I can show you some other things that we've done through our hashtag. So our next steps beyond this point that we are completely in line is to do our district chat, which we particularly have not done yet for a reason. Because connecting our teachers online is a priority and not all of them are there. Our next thing, we have a blog space set up. When I joined Lufkin, I immediately created a hashtag, Lufkin Learns. We created a blog, we created all of our social media channels. The hashtag has been going like crazy. Teachers share on it all the time. The blog itself has been primarily written within our department, but we're going to open that up to our ambassadors to submit guest blogs, or honestly, even any of our teachers or students can submit guest blogs. So that'll be a fun part. We want to do a weekly Google Hangout, probably bi-weekly, now that I say it again out loud, because if weekly challenges overwhelm them, a weekly hangout would definitely be a little bit overwhelming. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our new professional learning plan and how that's working too. And I can probably show you that within our community. So as I learn new ideas and things, one of the other fun parts is, yes, we have weekly challenges, but in our community, I can go paste an idea or a link, and I can say, what do you think about this? And the teachers are very open about it. I also met with all of them, and we meet monthly to talk about what they want, how they want it, and what they would change, and how they would change it, and that's working too. Again, when I was hired as digital learning and professional development, I flat out said up front that I'm not going to come in and do the same type of plan that I had as a teacher. The kind where you're given a piece of paper and it says you have to get 6 hours in this, 5 hours in this, 10 hours in this, and here are the only things you can do to get those credits. And instead, I wanted to come up with something that would I wanted to come up with something that was aligned with where the teachers were. And probably a really big moment for us was I heard through the grapevine that one of our teachers had his own Google Apps domain. And that, because he was using that because we didn't have our kids in Google yet. So I went to visit this particular teacher, and turns out it was true, he did, but it was because he ran the journalism classes. And so the system that he bought, the platform that they do journalism from, came with Google Apps for Business. So I got to go in, and I didn't go in and say, hey, you can't use this because we have Google Apps and you need to be using what we're doing. Instead, I said, show me what you're doing and how you're doing it. And so he did. And it turns out that the only way they were using the Google Apps part was so that the kids could have email. They weren't using the other parts of it, or so they were doing, I take that back. They were also writing their stories but sharing it to him. So those were, to me, entries enough where we could transition them into our system and it wouldn't be a big issue. So I went and sat down with him and explained like the difference between the two. But also opted to, for this year, he's just keeping the system he has while we slowly migrate them to our system. And that was really important because it led to this moment. He happened to be using some like amazingly put together spreadsheet. And all I can tell you about it is I've never seen that kind of wizardry before in my life, but it's one where you could have certain columns of cells the kids could change and certain ones that they couldn't. And he used this to keep up and organize timelines across all of the journalism platforms that they were using. And so I was like, all right, how did you learn that? And he says, YouTube. He said, really? Show me. So he did. And so I said, all right, this makes sense to me. Like, you watched this video that was an hour and a half long, mind you. He did watch the whole hour and a half. And I said, what if you could count this as your professional learning credit? Instead of having this would take the place of this whole part, 3 of the hours of you sitting for 6 hours in a session that doesn't relate to what you do. And he was like, I would love that. I said, so how would you submit this? He said, you know how kids do independent study? And I was like, yeah. He said, so I would submit the link that I learned from, submit a brief synopsis about why I needed to use this, and then submit my artifact. Would that work? I said, that would work. And that's where that particular individual plan started for our teachers, was with that one teacher from me going in his classroom about Google Apps. So for our professional learning plan that is currently being written is our teachers are definitely going to have multiple pathways of growth. We're making it not about the credits. Texas is about to embark on a brand new evaluation system that covers multiple domains. So as they learn within each domain that they need to learn in, that's where those hours can account for. In the past, even for our comp time credit, our district set up 2 days of training and the teachers were mandatory required to come to. And if they didn't, their only choice was a University of Phoenix course. It was awful to get credit for that. It's so bad. Or they would have to be docked pay because they didn't come to the really, really bad 2 days of training. It is recorded because they might watch this. And that's a whole other story. But that's neither here nor there. They know my opinion on it. So instead, this year we're going to do an ed camp, and we have teachers involved in the planning process. And the ed camp is happening because I heard through the grapevine that the teachers wanted to have something like that because they heard through the grapevine that other schools were doing that. They had never actually been to one. So hopefully they'll go to one before this school year ends. But it was really kind of amazing to email those teachers and say, hey, I heard you wanted to do an ed camp. I think we should, and I think that you guys should be in charge of it, because what happens when districts start to run it is it becomes that you have to have a sign-in sheet for each session you go to, or a sticker that you can put on the end of the day certificate so you can get credit saying that you were there. We don't want to do those things. So will you be a part of this? And if you want my support, I will. So they insisted, but they also insisted that I help them, so we are. So we're going to have our first ed camp at the end of the summer, but it's going to be led by our teachers, and that is pretty exciting that we get to do that. So at the end of the day, and I started, I guess, with our Bright Lights data and showing some of the things that we weren't doing and a few pockets of what we were. What I kind of learned along the way was if we gave the teachers pathways and access, and supported even the teachers who were doing great things behind closed doors that nobody knew about, but we allowed them to be creative in the open, that they would, and that it could be shared, and then other people could learn from it. So I guess we're kind of disrupting the system a little bit. At the same time, building the bigger system that will enable this to continue year after year. One of the biggest questions that I usually get is, are you going to continue to add more ambassadors? Yes. I'm going to add every year. I don't know what that number is going to be. It might be 30, it might be 50, it might be 100 if we're lucky. But if that program is a way that we can make sure that we are providing these pilots of learning that we can then extend to the whole district, then so be it. And that's where we are right now we started this type of learning with our ambassador teachers, and now we are looking to what will this look like, extending this to the rest of our teachers. Any questions? I feel like I've been talking at y'all for like 50 minutes. Comments, observations, nothing?
Sounds like you had a lot of knowledge from Twitter. Have you encountered a lot of feedback from other administrators, and how are you?
I'm glad you said it that way. Yes, I've had a lot of buy-in from teachers. And I'll say that saying that there's, I'm sure, not buy-in from teachers, because I kind of like when we did Hour of Code. Hour of Code was the very first time that this has ever happened in our school district, period, or any coding at all that wasn't a computer science class in high school, or where they only coded in Java. So one campus I know was 100% because they posted it all over Twitter, and our superintendent was there with them all week, and it was amazing. But I didn't even know how much it wasn't 100% on other campuses until we had our STEM day a few weeks ago, and we could clearly tell which campuses did Hour of Code and which ones did not, because we had far too many kids on at least 4 campuses who had no idea what coding was. So that gave us a lot of pause, and what we see on Twitter is often a perception of what happens than what actually happens. Our ambassador classrooms did it, but that was the snapshot they shared, and we didn't see the others. So that was, hopefully that answers some of the teacher, not feedback questions, not supporting questions, but there's more to this. The teachers that, like at high school, one of the big issues in our district was that YouTube was blocked for everybody, because YouTube is the devil, right? And so I, using I like to call buying power, I'm our executive director of professional and digital learning, but we have an executive director of technology services. And he is very anti, let's block it all. Block it all. Nobody has to do anything. So I said, you need to unblock YouTube for our high school kids, and then you need to unblock it for teachers, because why are we blocking that? That's ridiculous. They need to be able to upload. We have media classes that are not, they're using their personal Gmails to upload their assignments to, because they can't upload them to their school accounts, which makes no sense. So I didn't even realize this. I walked into that campus probably a month after it happened, and was basically tackled by teachers who says, you unblocked YouTube. And not in a bad way. They were like, we just realized one day that we could get to YouTube. And I was like, yeah. And they said, no, we were doing the math and trying to figure out when that happened, because that would not have happened. So we figured out it had to be when you got here. And the next statement from that was, you have no idea how much support you have on this campus. From high school, which is usually the campus you expect to not have support. But our high school teachers were already doing things like they had all the kids create Gmail accounts, and they were doing online learning using personal Gmail. We finally got their Google accounts for students to them by January, because it took that long to build our infrastructure that didn't exist. We had Google for 3 years, but we never put students in, and we never put organizational units in, so none of those things happened. So we had a lot of problems. Now from an administrator standpoint, there is an executive director of curriculum and instruction, and she is, the hard part when you have been living in a box or in a shell is that when these changes are happening, and this is never how you ever saw school in your life, then it becomes something that is not related to you. So I think a lot of her pushback is mostly fear because she has never experienced it. But I do get a lot of statements like, well, we're going to do the things you want to do. We're going to do this thing because, you know, that thing you're trying to do here. That kind of thing. It was always something that was wrapped in me. And so one of the big issues is summer school. My superintendent said, we are not going to have traditional summer school where we sit and we do the test bank worksheets and problems all day. We're just not going to do it. What do you want? What do you have in mind, Ranfranz? And so I said, awesome, we're going to do blah, 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 blah. So I'm getting to create innovative camps and making them learning camps instead of, you know, what they had been. And so my understanding was all of the summer school would be that way. We could have a mixture of the things that they needed to learn to remediate could be done creatively. They could do a website about the topic they're learning about and make it standards-based so that the kids knew what they were learning and there was clear assessment all the way through where the kids were creating through it. But she didn't hear that message. Her message was, you would create other camps that did those things, but my test prep camps would still be, we're doing the same curriculum we've done in a box with whatever teachers would sign up and we would just have them do it. So we had to have a long discussion about my plan versus, you know, district vision. And this is not me. This would be happening if I were not here, hopefully, with someone else. And that's where we are. So part of that is we're going, our district administrators are going as a team to the Future Ready Summits so that we can have some discussion amongst ourselves and then spread that to our entire leadership team, which is 100+ principals, assistant principals, and specialists. And then as we're doing that, you know, that whole ambassador thing that we have started and our students, that we could have that same build happening at the bottom and then also at the top, and then at some point meet in the middle in a very short amount of time. Just so that answer, okay. I'm trying to be as politically correct as possible without saying, and the tech director is really fun. I'll just put it this way, $1.8 million in last term goals. I'm going to leave that at that. Any other questions? So I think that is, this session has, I think it is at what, 10:50? 45? Oh, I'm like right on time, or a little bit earlier, because the next session is going to start. But thank you all for spending time. If you have any questions later, comments, observations, tweet me, email me.